Now, there's a classic saying with Torn Banner patches that it's not what the developers have added to the game that determines its quality, but what they have broken. And so far, reaction to the state of the servers in patch 2.2 has been extremely negative, and I do plan on making a video with full-on impressions of the patch, but this is not that video. Sometimes when new content drops, the increase of players can cause server problems, so I do want to give it till maybe Friday before I form a solid opinion on those issues. Now, the big ticket items for patch 2.2 is of course the new modes, Brawl and Last Team Standing, and the new weapon, the Rapier, but buried under all of the new content are some pretty significant patch notes that will alter the feel of the game. I'm Strider the Champ, and today I will go over all the big ticket game altering changes to Chivalry 2. I spent the time reading the patch notes, so you do not have to, but they will be linked in the description anyway. Now let's start with our first big adjustment. Turn caps have been increased. What the hell is a turn cap and why is it so important? Ever try to strike an enemy with an overhead or stab and they dodge out of your field of view? You try to drag your mouse to them, but at a certain point you lose most of your mouse sensitivity and are unable to cover the distance. This is a turn cap. On release, you could turn overhead significantly farther. This was nerfed to avoid spinning attacks. You'll now have a wider turn cap, which should make overheads and stabs land more. Now, I will say, even though Reddit has moaned about turn caps, in the 64-player story mode, I tend to use mostly overheads and stabs and had no real problem with the old turn caps, but well, now it's going to be easier. Quick note on combat, stab special attacks have also been slowed down over all weapons, allowing players to more readily react to them. As a longsword master, this is disappointing. We should be encouraging people to stab and overhead since the majority of the player base only slashes. Now for adjustments to combat, Torn Banner is looking to tone down the strength of one-handed weapons and has made a very small adjustment to slow their weapon release. I love the philosophy of making extremely minor adjustments to slowly bring a weapon in line rather than swinging the Nerf bat like Call of Duty and making a weapon completely useless in one patch. One of the most frustrating things about fighting a one-handed weapon is that sometimes, even if you riposte their attack, if they combo their next swing, the one-hander will still land first, even though the defender properly blocked and countered. Riposted attack combo time has been slowed to hopefully stop this from happening as much. Again, these nerfs were very light, and I still think one-handers will be extremely powerful. Players may also find themselves weaponless more often as stamina usage has seen some adjustments. Jumping now consumes stamina as it probably should have all along, but also heavy attacks will now also consume stamina. I'm curious to see how this affects players who use heavy attacks regularly to add those wild drags to their 1v1 duel encounters. Interesting change to blunt weapons as they've been the 1 vs 1 night killer weapon since release. We traditionally traded insane bonus damage for the lack of swing through ability. Blunt weapons will now cleave through multiple enemies on regular attacks when an enemy is killed. We may see more players begin to favor the blunt weapons. I'm excited for this as I already love the heavy mace. However, I do think blunt weapons were already pretty strong, so I'm not sure if it was a needed adjustment. Now for game mode and map changes, the slaughter of Coxwell might need to start being called the defense of Coxwell as defenders have been granted multiple buffs, with the main one being more reinforcements on the final stage before the peasant gang rises up. Escape from Foulmire has similarly seen some adjustments to provide the attackers with a better shot at victory by adjusting spawns and the time it takes to crank the cage, locking Thorn. Thorn himself has seen a hearty health increase and now has bandages to self-heal. Now before we go, some quick hitters here. NVIDIA DLSS has been added to the game, which should increase performance for PC players, along with a Show FPS toggle. How Show FPS has been gone so long is beyond me, but I'm glad it's back. Parties and friends in the same server will now generally be placed on the same team. I know some players who like to join servers with 3 to 4 parties who will be very excited for the chance to stack teams with this method. Vote kick has also seen some adjustments, so now it's harder to kick the leading player in a free-for-all match for the crime of just being better than his opposition. And finally, archer limits are now in the game. Suck it, archer mains. That's it for me. I should be back on Friday with my final patch impressions. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it. Then head on over to Twitch to see me stomp lobbies live.